everybody. All right, so I wanted to go through the process of creating this ammo crate that you see here. Now I just wanted to pick a really simple prop object because what I really want to try to teach is the basic overview of a procedural pipeline. And we're only going to be using Houdini, Substance Painter, maybe a little bit of Substance Designer. But really we're just going to stick with those three procedural packages, and then we're going to import it into Unity to see the results. And we might get into a little bit of the Houdini engine for this particular type of prop, but really it would just be for something like stacking a whole bunch of these guys or scattering them about, not necessarily to control the prop itself. All right, we're going to use proceduralism to build the prop, and it will be a static model at the end of the day. So let's jump back over into Houdini over here. And what we're going to do first, actually I lied, let's look at our reference again. So I'm going to build these two side pieces here, right, or the end caps first. And it's really just a vertical cube and a horizontal box for the two planks, but we're going to separate those out and get those guys all built. It shouldn't take too long. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a geometry container over here. All right. And then give it a name. So I'm just going to call this ammo crate for now. Might change as we go. I'm free-forming this whole thing. I haven't actually prepared this previously, so it will be interesting to see how it all turns out. So the first thing I want to do is create a box here, and I'm going to go and resize this so that it is basically in the shape of the side or the end cap of that ammo crate. Now it's fine that it's sitting right at world 0 like that in the center, because we're going to go and transform all this stuff later, so it's just sitting on the grid. So I'm not too worried about that stuff just yet. So that looks pretty good. And a couple things I want to do now is get the other box. So I'm just going to call this end plank, and then we're going to create another box over here. So say box. And we'll call these the end supports, something like that. I might change those as well. And now what I want to do is I'm going to start hooking up some properties here so that these guys are the same height all the time as the end plank there. All right, and I also want to position them. I don't want to do it by hand. I want to do it with a little bit of proceduralism. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to first find their positions where they should be on this guy. So to do that, I'm going to use a line. So let's drop out a line here. And I want it to point in the X direction in this case, right? So you can see this little gizmo down here. I need the line itself to point in that X direction. So to do that, we'll just do 1 for the X axis. And let's view just the line here. All right, and now you can see that currently it is pointing out in the positive direction, so I want it to sit in the center there. So to do that, we can just take the length here. I'm just going to copy the parameter, and in the origin for the X, I'm just going to set that to times 0.5 and negate that. And now what we have is a line here that is sitting in the center, so you can see the 2 points there. I'm not sure why the end plank is still displayed, but it's being super funky. There we go. Weird. All right, so what we're going to do is make sure that this length here, the length of this line, is the same as the length of this end plank here. So what I can do is, that's all being controlled with this size right here, right? So that will be our control for that particular, the width of the whole ammo crate basically. So what I can do is just copy this. Whoops. I'm going to copy this parameter and then put it into the length here. So paste relative reference. So now if I were to merge these two, just so we can visualize this together, you can see that the line, if I were to change this, it's going to go and be the same size as that end plank there. Perfect. So now I want an offset. So I'm going to use a carve node for this, and this allows me to basically just pull off the ends there. So if I turn on the first and the second view, what I can get is an offset of that line. So the line itself is always retaining its width compared to the end plank. And then we have this carve node, and this allows me to control the offset. And to make sure that we get the same offset on both sides, all I need to do is just take this first u. So I'm going to copy this parameter, paste this, and we'll just say 1 minus. And now if I just control this one parameter, we get the same offset on both sides. And the reason why we need to do that is because I'm going to use this now to copy the end supports too. All right, so just doing a little organization here. So I'm going to say copy to points, like so. Feed in the line points, so these 2 points. All right, that'll give me 2 copies of that box, and then we can merge the result of the end plank and those end supports together. All right, so now we have 2 of those end supports. Very cool. All right, we can control that offset. So now what we need to do is work on the size of the box supports. We also need to position the line so that it's sitting right on the positive z of the end plank. So we want it sitting right on the face of that. Okay, so we're going to do a transform. All right, and what we want to do is transform it to the positive z. So we're going to do a BB box. And we'll say end plank because we want to get the information from the end plank. And the information that we want is the z max. So that's the positive. So if we were to look at our line or even the merge, you can see now, it's probably a little better if we do this. You can see now the line is sitting right on the face of the end plank there. So perfect. All right, very cool. And now what we need to do is also push the boxes here. So we need to transform the boxes so that they sit also on that same. So you could actually just copy and paste this node to get that same sort of functionality. So that just pushes that forward a little bit more. And actually, let's not do that. Let's drop down another transform node because we want. So the points on the line are taking care of that position. What I want to do is actually push this box based off of its depth value. So what we're going to do is we're going to say z max for here. So we can use the z max expression, and that pushes it straight onto the positive z. So now it's sitting perfectly. So when we look at it being placed onto the wood plank, now it's perfect. The position is perfect. So we can go and change the x value here of this, so we can make these guys a little smaller, change their depth, and now they're just sitting right on top. Perfect. And we have control over the width now of the whole end cap, so they'll go with that, and we also have control over the offset. All right, so using proceduralism to help us, model things a little bit faster, and also it might not maybe necessarily be a lot faster. You could model that by hand pretty quickly, right? It's just 3 cubes. But now I can go back and change any of these parameters at any time if I'm not happy with stuff, and everything will be updated appropriately. So now it's, just less things you have to worry about. All right, so now to test this out, what I want to do is create a line, another line. So this is going to be the depth, I think, or maybe we'll say the crate length line. All right, and this is the supports line. We'll say end supports line. All right, so I'm just using these lines for placement. Okay, so now we want the line to be on the z direction. So this is going to be set up. And now what we can do is we can actually create presets in here. All right, so if I were to go and set this up by hand, right, so I would just go and start typing in values. So I want this to be in the z direction. And I want to do that trick where we center the line on the z axis now. So paste relative reference times 0.5. And we negate that. So now we have a line that sits right in the center there. So with that done, what you can do, right, is we can create a preset out of this. Because I do this all the time. And you'll find the more you get into Houdini that you do that all the time as well. So what we can do is we can say save preset. And so I'll call this the zdir centered. And we'll just say save preset. So now, whenever I go back in here, I now have this preset called ZDir centered. I also have the X direction because I do that a lot on the X direction as well. Might as well, go and do it on the Y direction too, so you just have those three. So now it just saves time with typing. So with our line set up here, what we can do is do another copy to points. Pretty simple. So we'll use this line here and this guy right there. And there we go. Now you'll notice that we have two copies, which is great. So now we're controlling the length of our ammo crate. Cool. And we're going to use this line for a lot of other things now that we have it set up. Okay, we have the control for the box size, or the width basically of those supports, and control for the size of the actual ammo crate itself. Oops, wrong one. Sorry. There we go. So now we have control over that. So perfect, we have a nice start. But what we need to do is we need to make sure that the end caps are placed appropriately. So basically, we have one that's facing out in this direction, and we need the other cap to be facing the opposite direction. And we can do that with normals, right? So basically, we have normals here. We actually don't have any normals. What we can do is we can just do a polyframe really quick. And because I only have 2 points here, that's never going to change. I can do a few things. So the first thing I want to do is just generate some normals. All right, so now I have some normals using that polyframe node. And by putting the current normal into the tangent name here using that polyframe node, you'll get normals that flow along the direction of the curve. They follow the curve basically. Again, you can make that a preset, so we'll just call this flow normals like I already have. Okay. So what I want to do is negate the first one. So what we need is our point numbers. Okay, so we have 0.0 and 0.1. So 0.1, I need to reverse it. So what I can do is I can do either a point expression, right? So we can say point, or we can do a attribute wrangle, and I do love doing that a lot, right? Because what you can do is you can just put in the point, and we can just say at n equals negative at n, and it flips it. And basically doing a point expression is kind of doing the same thing. So if we just do 1, set this to normal, and what we can do is we can say at n equals negative at n. Does that even work? It does. So 2 ways you can do it, just like that. And so I'm just going to keep the attribute wrangle because these nodes are a little bit faster. Not that I'm too worried about speed in terms of the performance and stuff of this particular digital asset, but they are faster. So I just want to mention that. So with that, you can see they are now working. All we need to do is drop down a normal node so we can fix the normals there, because they inherit the normals. You can turn off, if we go to this node, we can say don't copy the point attributes, and there you go. Or you can put in a normal node like so, and that'll fix that as well, because you might actually want to transfer some attributes from the points. But if you don't need to, then you could just turn that off. Cool. So now we have the crate length there. Boom. Let's turn all this extra data off there. All right, so we're on our way. And I do like to get all this stuff kind of blocked in, right, with the nodes. I don't go into too much detail at first. You could easily go in and start beveling everything and adding the little nails and stuff like that. But really what I'm trying to do is just get this thing set up so that we have all the major shapes in place, and then we'll start to bevel it. So let's go back to Houdini over here. And I think I'm going to end this particular video here. That's a pretty good setup. And in the next video, we'll get the sides in. And then after that, we'll do the tops and stuff like that. Okay, thanks so much.